I am so excited to share with you our 2024 in-ground garden. Because we haven't ever done a garden tour before, I'm going to be doing a little bit of explaining how it's evolved over the years, as well as showing you our plans for this year. So let's get started. Hopefully some of this will help you get ideas for your garden. Hello and welcome back to Maplewood Homestead. My name is Nancy. When we first moved here, I don't know why I thought this was the best patch of land to plant on. It is the furthest from our house and the hardest to get water to. I wasn't thinking it through. I do realize now one of the most powerful things you can do when you're starting to grow your own food is the power of observation. Sitting back, watching, and thinking through things. So originally this garden patch was not that. I don't remember what my initial thinking was, but this is where we started. I planted the fruit trees here, and probably one thing I would do different is put a lot more spacing in between. Originally when I got them, the directions said plant them 10 feet apart. Now looking at how massive they are and with the years of experience we have behind us, I would probably do more like 20 to 30 feet between them, to be honest with you. However, we are going to get fruit this year, I'm hoping. Look at all the lovely plums on our tree. I just got to keep up with the spraying and make sure that that happens, because in years gone by, I might have gotten a bit distracted and that didn't happen. But I'm excited to see the plums, the peaches, and the apples this year. When we initially set up this back garden area, we had only lived here for 3 weeks. One of the first things I did was call the local tree service company and get 2 deliveries of wood chips. So as we unpacked, as we unloaded those cardboard boxes, I laid them out back here and we put the wood chips on top. If you've never seen the Back to Eden Garden Method documentary, I highly recommend it. It was the thing that inspired us to do that. I'm going to tell you, it is probably the best way to go about gardening, in my opinion. There's no tilling. You wind up building rich soil. We came back a few years later. The soil here was so much better than the soil anywhere else on our property. It had broken down and the worms had got to it, and it was beautiful soil. So I would probably do that many times over if I could. However, if you can get free wood chips, that's the only way to really do it in my book. We started out paying $75 a truckload, and that truckload is now up to $125. And since our garden has expanded, we just can't afford that. So while I love the cardboard, wood chips, let it decompose, and while we were able to do that for 2 years, we weren't long able to afford it after that. What I really love about the no-till method is not only is it minimal work, and as David and I get older, we're thinking about how to keep the workload down as our bodies age. How do we handle the property that we have and the things that we're building here? The no-till method does what naturally occurs out in the forest. It keeps decomposing, and as the fall comes and things fall on top of it, adds more to it, mulches itself every year. That's what we were trying to create. But again, because we couldn't afford wood chips every year, we had to think of something different to do. This is the size of our garden now. As you can see, we have 1 round bale. This weekend we're going to get another, and none too soon because the weeds have already started to grow up back here. If you've seen our other videos, this was the area of the pigs, which are now over there. We had them in here to tear down the overgrowth and mess that we had from last year. So this year, round bales it is. This is the first time we've tried the round bales. This cost me $35. We've got 1 more to go down and cover that area. I know this plantable area is 2,500 square feet. This 1 round bale will easily cover this 2,500 square feet. Our plans for this particular garden is to grow as much animal fodder as we can. And I really need to get going because I'm already behind in growing beets, but I also want to grow corn and sunflowers. Sophie and Thor, you guys are good dogs. Good dogs. Sophie has definitely worked out. If you've seen any of our earlier videos, she was questionable. Huh. The third year we were here, I thought we can't keep this up. So what did we try? We tried leaves instead. I mean, wood's not the only decomposable material out there. So I went ahead, and the Lord knows we have enough trees and enough leaves around here that I went ahead and gathered them up and put them on our garden. I found that the leaves didn't let the water permeate as much, and I wound up with a really slippery, slimy kind of anaerobic feel to the whole leaf mulch method. And maybe some other people have had different experiences, but that was our experience that one year that I tried the leaf litter. So as of 2020, we started a new garden closer to our house. I mean, everybody did new cool stuff in 2020, right? So let me show you our garden bed entering its 4th year. This is a 50 by 60 garden bed. Yours does not have to be this big, but what I'm about to tell you, you could easily do the same thing. In 2020, since we couldn't do the cardboard and the wood chips, we decided what we would do is try something a little different. We had a bunch of Bermuda grass up here. We took some 4mm black plastic, which I will leave a link to below, and laid it out. I think we started with 1,000 square feet, which was one roll. We put it out, let the heat bake the Bermuda grass, and then pulled up the black plastic. Once the Bermuda grass was dead, we went ahead and put all of the waste hay from the goat barn out here, and we planted directly into the soil, just pulling back enough that the plants could come out. I really only had to water until the seedling was established, and then I didn't have to water ever again. Why? This hay keeps the moisture in. 2 reasons we're not using the waste hay from the barn this year. Number 1, there's not enough. We've expanded this garden and the garden in the back, although the goats waste a lot of hay, and we do deep litter over the winter, and there was usually a ton of it, but there's not enough to cover this size garden bed. In this garden, what we're gonna plant is things like our tomatoes, our cucumbers, all the things that we're gonna eat or things I'm gonna can. Goat manure is not high in ammonia like chicken manure is, so it can be directly put onto your garden bed. And so that's why it was perfect to just take the waste hay and put it directly onto our garden. And the couple of years that I did it, yes, I got some weeds because it is hay and it does carry some seeds. But it was nothing like what happened last year. Last year, I didn't get the chance to put the hay on the garden, and I thought, oh, I'll just let it go this one year. Wrong answer. And so, like I said about observation, it was not hard to observe that that was not the right thing to do. I know a lot of people are not gonna agree with putting seedy, weedy hay on your garden. It's worked for me this far, and as long as it keeps working and I only have minimal weeds to pull as opposed to the atrocity that happened to me last year, this is what I'm gonna do. So you're gonna have to come back and see if it was a success or a failure. So now let's look in our greenhouse. Before we head into the greenhouse so I can show you what I've got started so far, I want to show you what I already have planted in this garden area. Right here, I think these are their 3rd year growing. These are a special willow bush, and I cannot remember the name of them. They're actually been developed by a university up north, and I'm gonna have to look, but I was reading the book Beyond the Pellet that talked about how to feed your rabbits more than just pellet. I really want to grow as much as we can for our own animals, and this was my attempt at it. So it's a willow bush, and I'll probably leave a link to Beyond the Pellet below, as well as the name of this particular bush and where you can find it. Okay, also, I transplanted my Egyptian walking onions. They were growing out in my garden area there, and I pulled them and transplanted them. I'm gonna tell you, I'm really happy because I feel like they transplanted really well. Eventually, because of the nature of the Egyptian walking onion, they're probably gonna fill the majority of this area. However, I did read that onions and strawberries are good companion plants. So I had some strawberry starts here, as you can see. So far it's kept the pests away, and yes, there are some weeds there. That's going to be really easy for me to take care of though. And look, I've already got a little strawberry growing. To the greenhouse and show you what I'm growing, I want to show you an example of using that black plastic to prepare an area for planting. Over here, next to our greenhouse, is where my daughter Rachel loves to plant flower gardens. And so she didn't have much time to work on it yet, taking care of school. So she just put this black plastic on until she has time to get to it. This will actually prevent any new growth from coming up. And as you can see, it's our old and tattered black plastic, which works just as fine with some bricks that we had laying around the property. I forgot to mention, when the black plastic starts to deteriorate, you can use it as a border for your garden. Just because it's starting to fall apart doesn't mean it's time to throw it out. We actually folded it and created a border from our garden to kind of discourage anything from growing into our garden. I have found this works incredibly well, and it's a wonderful way to recycle the black plastic rather than just tossing it. So I put every 10 feet I put two landscaping pins, and I'll probably put a brick in between every 5, so every 10 feet, but in between. So now into our greenhouse. We haven't yet put down pea gravel the whole time we've been here, which is fine. This has worked really well. Every year I do have to put down a new layer of landscape fabric. But these are our tomato plants, beefsteak tomatoes. My family, even the ones that don't care for store-bought tomatoes, will gobble up garden tomatoes. So I'm making sure that I started a lot of these. And I'll probably do more of them as the season goes on, plant more. From the suckers, I will take the suckers off and let them root out, and I can even sell those at the farmer's market within the next month or so. See right here, this is a sucker, and I can take that off, put it into water up to there, and then it will root, and I can just stick it in dirt, and I'll have a whole new plant that I can resell at the farmer's market. Here's some of the flower starts that Rachel had that will go into that area that I just showed you. I've got broadleaf sage, which I love for cooking, and we can use it for medicinal purposes. And what did I plant here? I used the wrong pen. This is my peppermint plants. I'm waiting for them to start popping up. Over here I have my golden cabbage, which is ready to be transplanted. We have a storm coming in right now, and I'm gonna wait till that passes before I transplant those. It's gonna be high winds, not probably the best time to plant young seedlings. We do have basil growing, sweet and Genovese. I have some more tomato beefsteak tomatoes growing here, as well as mortgage lifters. And here is the beginning of our animal fodder plants. This is tromboncino. Tromboncino was a squash that was grown generations ago to feed animals, but the great part of it is people can eat it too. Tromboncino squash, when it's in its early stage, is much like zucchini. You can eat it just like zucchini. If you let it continue to grow out, it hardens on the outside and you can overwinter it. So my plan is to use some for us and then keep some over the winter for the animals, like the pigs, the chickens, the goats. Even the goats will eat it. And after I harvest them, they can have the leaves. So it's win-win. Next, of course, I've got my lovely pickling cucumbers, because who doesn't want pickles? And catnip, which will serve as pollinator attractors in my garden and a treat for our barn cats. You can actually use catnip medicinally too. I've got cilantro, because we will have lots of pico de gallo once I have the jalapenos growing with the tomatoes. And dill. So many of the rabbit recipes that I like to make include dill. I just love the taste of it. Did you also know, which I didn't know till we started farming, that cilantro seeds is actually coriander? I didn't know that. Over in this corner, I have my reused dirt. If you noticed, these have little grass in them. It's because every year I will reuse the dirt that I have and amend the dirt for planting. This year all I've done is taken some of my compost dirt and the reused dirt and mixed it with some peat moss to kind of make it more light and fluffy. And that's what these containers are. Over on this side, I have more seeds than anything else because I realized the ones that are left on the ground, I had little voles or mice coming in and eating them. So any of the seeds that are big cannot be left over here. I'm surprised they haven't gone after the cilantro because the coriander seeds are pretty big. But stuff like pumpkin and squash, those little critters have a nose for it. They will come in and dig up your little pots. So I put them over here. Now, that's not true for, say, my chamomile. Chamomile's real little, but the calendula was pretty big. So look, we have one here, little calendula here. Let's see if I can get that's the size of a calendula seed. So surprised, I let them grow up over here. So we've got a bunch of those coming in. Over here I've got cucumbers starting to come in, big ginormous pumpkin, and our favorite is the purple Cherokee tomato, and you can see we have quite a bit that have actually germinated. There were a few that didn't. Looks like something dug in that. It looks like something dug in here, the kale seed. They got up here too, those little boogers. Holy smokes. Here's an interesting experiment I did. You see these? Grocery store small bell peppers. I took them out of one of my bell peppers and dried them as an experiment, and it looks like it's working. So there you go, free seed. Whatever you eat, keep the seed, throw it in the ground, see if it works. Armenian foot-long cucumbers are amazing. So we got some of those coming up. What are these? I forget what I've written. Oh, the Big Mac's pumpkins. That's pumpkins. We're gonna try and grow a ginormous pumpkin for the fair. I don't know if it will work, but you'll have to tune in and see if it does. Looks like something got into that one. Dang it. Of course, zucchini. And I have some recently planted things up here. I pre-germinated these in a wet paper towel, so to speak. And that's why, as an experiment, it actually does work if you germinate like that first. Have some yellow squash. This is rosemary that a friend gave me that I transplanted, and the clippings put in a little rooting powder and stuck them in here, and they worked, so I'm pretty excited. I love rosemary. Rosemary is another plant that not only does it taste great, it can be used medicinally as well. Rucola tomatoes, which are great for like tomato paste. Don't know what's going on here except a whole lot of grass. It doesn't seem like my cantaloupe was coming up, nor my watermelon. They were older seeds, so maybe that's part of it. My big Jim chili peppers harkens back to New Mexico. Shout out to all my New Mexico friends. One okra plant out of 4 seemed to do great. Not really sure what's going on there. I always overplant anyway. And my jalapenos, waiting on them to come up. Spaghetti squash. I love spaghetti squash, and it's so expensive. And so it's better to just grow it. Green beans. And nasturtium. Nasturtium not only makes some beautiful flowers that attracts pollinators, but can also be used medicinally. Something new I'm trying this year is making my own fertilizer. So in here I have chopped up comfrey in water. It's been fermenting for a couple of weeks now, and by the time my seedlings are ready to be fertilized after I plant them, I'm going to use this. It's going to be about a tablespoon per gallon. Something else I'm going to try is fish fertilizer. We had a friend gift us a bunch of fish. Not only did it make it a lovely dinner for us, I took the remains and started my own fish fertilizer. Let's very carefully see what it's looking like. Oh, that looks lovely. Hey, it's doing what it's supposed to do. Lastly, for our garden tour, the one thing I want to show you is these lovely cedar planter boxes that somebody gifted to us. They were done with it, And so I'll leave a link above of how I filled them for free. And what we're gonna plant in here are all of our mints and lemon balms and things that just kind of take over your garden if you let them. So this is gonna be our herb garden. Right now, I've got strawberries planted in them. Look at this. I'm kind of excited, I ain't gonna lie, look at that. Look at all of that. Very, very, very excited. Oh, one berry down here. Because you've made it this far in the video, I'm going to share with you our special hack for keeping deer out of our garden. We actually do have quite a population of deer that come through our property. There are 50 acres of wood behind us. And here's what we use. 5-foot T-posts and fishing line. I'm not even kidding. How does this work? Make yourself a fence, stringing fishing line about every 1.5 feet from the ground up. What happens is the deer will bump into it, and the 30-pound fishing line is sturdy enough that it won't break, but yet it's thin enough so the deer can't see it. And what they can't see, they won't jump. So they'll back up and go around it. I've been using this will be my 7th year. And up until now, I've never had a problem with keeping the deer out of our gardens, either way back away from our house or even up here in this garden. Highly recommend. Try it out and let me know if it works for you. Oh, here's a tip. Have your friends start giving you their Folgers cans. I use these to up pot my tomatoes until they're ready to go outside. And they cost me nothing, right? Just poke holes in the bottom. And they're super sturdy.